Hey guys, this is our last video for clapping number 4. These last 3 excerpts are challenging. The reason for that is that each excerpt has the division of the quarter note divided simply, meaning the quarter note divides into 2 eighth notes, as well as using borrowed divisions, where the quarter note divides into 3 triplet eighth notes. So how do you navigate this successfully? You need to make sure that your quarter note stays steady. By counting out loud and by keeping a steady pulse with your body, preferably standing up and marching, you can keep your quarter note very, very steady. My recommendation is before every division, divide in the manner in which you're going into. So for instance, let's look at number 3. In number 8, measure 2. In number 8, measure 2, you have 2 eighth notes. So you would count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and going into measure 3, you would start this first quarter note dividing into triplets because we're anticipating this moment. So let me clap for you measures 2 and 3 of number 8. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 pullet, 4 pullet. Notice, by counting the triplet in the very first beat of measure 3, I know how fast I need to go when I get to beat 3 of that measure. It really helps to keep that quarter note in the body. Let's do number 8 together. And again, be kind to yourself and choose a tempo that you can maintain. Here we go, number 8. 1 and 2 and 3 and here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 pullet, 4 pullet, 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 pullet, 4 pullet, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 pullet, 4 pullet, 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 pullet, 4 pullet, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 pullet, 4 pullet, 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 pullet, 4 pullet, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 pullet, 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 pullet, 4 pullet, 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 pullet, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Great. Now's the time to pause. Make sure that you can do number 8. 8, 9, and 10 are by far the most challenging examples in this handout. If you look at the next example, you'll see again, you have the alternation of duplet division where the quarter note splits into 2 eighth notes, but you also have the quarter note splitting into 3 triplet notes. Your job is to scan through the entire example and make sure there's never a time when you go directly from duplets to triplets. And the example at number 9 never has you doing that. There's always this space where you have a quarter note that gives you time to transition from a duplet division to a triplet division. Remember, please be sure not to do the first ending. Let's try this together. Nice and slow. Remember, the tempos I give you are just one tempo to go. You're never judged on tempo, so you take it at the tempo you can manage. Number 9, here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 pullet, 4 pullet, 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 pullet, 4 pullet, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 pullet, 4 pullet, 1 pullet, 2 3 pullet, 4 pullet, 1 pullet, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 pullet, 3 pullet, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 pullet, 4 pullet, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 3 and 4 and... Number 10 is the real doozy. In number 10, notice measure 3. Measure 3 is the first example where we are forced to go directly from duplets immediately to triplets. So again, your key to success here is making sure that you keep a steady quarter note pulse the entire time. All right, let's try number 10 together, nice and slow. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 pullet, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 pullet, 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 pullet, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 pullet, 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 and 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 pullet, 1 and 2 and 3 pullet, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 and 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 pullet. Great job, you guys. Use these as an opportunity to know what they sound like correctly, but most certainly practice these on your own so that you know for yourself you can do it without me. Good job.